Okay, every time you're getting things right in this with this relationship, you always have to come forward, and it always seems to be you choose Joe to make it creepy. What is up with you? DC shows. Okay, this is Supergirl, where they say that, hey, if someone's your adopted sister, you just call her your sister, and they act like your sister, and they're so adopted siblings are treated no differently than than siblings related by blood. Okay, and I could forget that Barry and Iris grew up together as siblings, except this show makes since this is a Supergirl episode, it makes every attempt to remind you that adopted siblings are treated the same as siblings. And then Joe, in the rehearsal dinner speech, talks about raising his 3 kids, and he's not counting the ones Cecile is pregnant with right now as one of them. No, he's counting Barry. I like Barry. I like Iris. I'm a fan of the comics, so I'm not opposed to them getting married, but come on. I mean, I wasn't opposed to Mr. Fantastic and Supergirl. I'm not opposed to superheroes getting married. Super Sons and Renew Your Vows are my favorite things going in comics. Both involve married superhero couples. When they did the Fantastic Four, that was one of my favorite books. So stop making this creepy by having Joe talk about Barry as one of his kids. Please, just please. Maybe I'm the only one who's getting hung up on this, but to me it almost seems way creepier. It seems way creepier than Luke and Leia, because they didn't know at the time, except, of course, wait, they did, because Leia's exact words were, "I know. Somehow I've always known." That's the exact line from Return of the Jedi. So yeah, I got this. So you've taken something sweet and something nice that nobody would have any problem with, and you've managed to make it creepy. Why? Just why? All I can assume is that since nobody says anything, nobody bats an eye, that Central City is in Alabama. I'm not going to get into why this is the only episode of Supergirl I've reviewed. Just trust me. I tried. I've been trying, but I can't get through an episode this season. Too preachy, too, I don't know, dingy and depressing, soap opera like. I can't. Well, anyway, I'm not getting into it. Anyway, the episode starts with a mysterious archer who, if you've seen any of the ads, you know who he is. And throughout the reviews of this week's episodes, I'm going to refer to the evil doppelgangers as Nazi, whatever the hero's name are, because Cisco isn't around to give them names. So, we don't know. So, we don't have names for them, and that seems as good a way as any to keep things unconfusing. So we see a bunch of resistance fighters messing with some sort of energy portal thing, and they're saying that it's their last hope. Suddenly, suddenly Green Nazi shows up and starts filling with arrows. He has a fight with a guy who can make an an old school Captain America #1 shield pop up out of his arm. But he kills him, and then he takes the thing, saying that it will ensure their rule lasts forever. We then get some quick cutaways that are fun cutaways to all the teams RSVPing to the invites to Barry and Iris's wedding, which I would have thought they were just gonna do something quick. I thought Iris figured it out after the episode. If you have a wedding in a comic book, you're just asking for a supervillain or a whole army of supervillains to crash it. Why even bother? Has there been a superhero wedding that's been pulled off without that happening? And what's more, they're making it more and more clear in these that the Marvel comic books and the Marvel movies exist in this universe. It started with the earliest one I can think of is a season 2 Arrow season 3 Arrow nod, where they talked about superheroes hiding out on a farm, and they said, I feel like I've seen this in a movie. And Felicity said that she felt like she had seen this in a movie, but now they're name dropping them. It'd be kind of nice if the MCU would return the favor and imply that DC comics exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because to me, this feels like old school comics. I know a lot of fanboys hate each other and stuff, but I was always, if it has good stories and heroes that I like, then I'll get it. As a kid, I didn't care if it was Marvel or DC. I knew the difference, of course, but the rivalry always seemed to be more friendly. Maybe the occasional friendly jab, but they would also make in the books. The creators would just make. So I don't think this is forced because it's in the spirit of the books. They would make, friendly name drops of people from other books or the other books. So the idea that the Marvel comic books exist in the Arrowverse as comic books and films, I just kind of like that. But anyway, so everybody RSVPs. Supergirl and her sister Alex are moping about something from previous episodes that isn't really important to the plot, and does, at least as far as I can tell at this point, and it's quite frankly one of the type of things that is the reason why I don't watch Supergirl. So I don't really care, because the scene really doesn't serve much of a purpose anyway, since we all know from Supergirl's personality and everything else. And here's the thing, my problem with Supergirl has never been the casting of Supergirl. Let's just make that clear. The casting on Supergirl is great, but we all know Supergirl's personality and everything. We all know that she's not gonna wallow in self-pity and she's gonna go, so why even have the scene? That's my it's like The Simpsons. Why even have the scenes where they pretend that they're gonna go with anybody other than Homer Simpson for the plot of a show? There was a great bit in, I think it was a season 8 episode of The Simpsons, where way back then they just had Smithers do a search for people who could do something, and he just gives up the search about halfway through the scene and goes, nuts to this, I'll just get Homer Simpson. That's how I feel about those types of scenes. When you know the outcome, why go through it? So anyway, everyone shows up, they spend time bonding, getting ready for the rehearsal dinner, which, here's a pet peeve of mine. Wedding rehearsals. What is the point of them? What, you go through the ceremony and the dinner so people can practice sitting in pews at church. Okay. maybe atheists have trouble figuring that one out, but for the rest of us, yeah, I think we could get to a pew in church and figure out which side we're supposed to be on without having to rehearse it first. Then you rehearse, then you basically go through the whole ceremony, only it doesn't count because it's a What? Whatever profession do you, whatever event in life do you do this in? Do you have a rehearsal birth? Does the mother give birth to a child and then you stuff it back in because, oh, that was just a rehearsal, now we have to do the real thing? Do we do rehearsal graduations where you give somebody a diploma and then you're like, whoop, take it back, I have to take it back because we have to do, because that was just a rehearsal, we have to do it again? And do people really need help for something that really only requires walking in a straight line, saying a few words on cue, and then going and having a dinner or lunch? I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I think most of us manage to do those sort of things fairly regularly without screwing up. What does having it happen at a wedding suddenly make it blow up? Suddenly make everyone in the room forget how their legs and gravity works? I don't get it. I've never gotten it, and I never will. It makes no sense. So anyway, everyone is great together, and yeah, and the chemistry here, it just makes me wish that they had been allowed to spend an extra year, like, making Justice League to make the chemistry in that film. I'm going to do a video on Justice League soon, but anyway, this isn't about a comparison, but I'm just saying that just the character interactions are it just feels so relaxed, and you can tell this is a cast that's not being rushed for their pace, even though it's being done on a TV budget and on TV timing. It just feels so great, and everyone's interactions just feel natural. The highlights, as always, in my view, are the interactions between Barry Allen and Oliver Queen, simply because Grant Gustin and Stephen Amell just play so well off each other, and they seem to know what these parts are supposed to be right away. And it's not the same type of relationship, but it sort of reminds me of when you see those audition tapes, or when you're even watching the original Star Wars movie of Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford playing off each other. The two actors just get what the relationship is supposed to be, and it's a good idea for one. The sort of mentor student relationship that has matured into really being each other's best friends and confidants, and here's the thing, I know some people say that that's Diggle or somebody else for that, or it's Cisco for Barry, but here's the thing, all those people have ties to other people in their life, so they can't always say everything that's bothering them because it might affect the team dynamic. Whereas they're the two people who they can talk openly because because their ties to the rest of their team, I mean, they're friends with the rest of their team, but their real tie is each other. So they can be open with each other in a way that they can't be with other members. So it's like a breath of fresh air whenever they come in and interact with each other a couple of times a season. And the writers always seem to bring their A game and know that these conversations are rare, so they have to mean something. So they do. Barry points out the It's just like it's just like it's just like there's just a lot going on beyond the dialogue. The actors just bring so much emotionally to the part and put some layers on it that you could tell it's operating on more layers than just the dialogue is, and that is just great. Whenever you have two actors on screen doing that, I don't care if there's action scenes or anything. I just like watching actors interact and work. That's probably why I love so many old movies. That's probably why Citizen Kane is my favorite movie, because most of the movie is just watching a couple of actors on screen in different scenes interacting. So yeah, it's great. Barry does point out the obvious to Oliver, that if he's waiting for things to calm down to propose to Felicity, that really isn't going to happen. Yeah, after after 6 years, he should know that's not going to happen. It's just not. So you may as well do it. And well, there's good and bad news for me. It's looking like Stein is leaving. But because it turns out what they didn't have the Wave Rider was Cisco and Wells. And they've managed to come up with a formula that will take away the Firestorm powers, so that they could stay split and Stein can leave the Legends and be with his wife and daughter and grandson. So if he leaves for that reason, I guess I'm okay with it. However, Jax doesn't seem very happy with this. Oh, don't get me wrong. Jax is an underrated character, I think, and this episode really shows why. And we'll get to that in a minute. But at first Stein thinks that it's because he misses this. He's going to miss having superpowers, so he makes up a formula to give him Spider-Man's wall sticking powers. Nothing else, just Spider-Man's wall sticking powers. But that isn't it, Jack explains. And this is an interesting idea to explore both on a science fiction and a character level. These two have been sharing a consciousness for over 3 years now at this point. Jax isn't sure isn't sure what he's going to do without that. I mean, think about it. After a while, it would sort of become second nature. I mean, from a distance, at first it was really freaky and all this stuff, but by this point, they're used to being able to feel what the everyone feels. And here's the thing: just because he doesn't like the idea of them being split, doesn't mean that he's going to stop the splitting. He still knows, because of those feelings, he still knows how much Stein wants to be with his family, and he's not about to do anything else. However, that doesn't mean he has to like it. And this is what makes him so much more mature than most other characters on TV. Most other characters on TV would make a big scene out of this, or would just be angry. Here, he's not really angry at Stein. He's just sort of dreading the inevitable that's going to happen, as most people do when a huge change like this is coming in their lives. He even puts it this way: Stein has become his foster father. His family has become Jax's, and now that's going to be taken away, and this connection that they both come to rely on for solving problems, and it's become second nature to them, that just become part of their day. He's going to have to learn to live without. It's going to be like having part of your brain and part of your heart taken out, and it's going to take some time, and he's not really saying that he doesn't want it to happen, or that it's just that the change, he's just dreading the change. And that's understandable. Now we get to rehearsal dinner, and I already made the rant about Joe's speech. It's happening at Jitters because standing set, we paid for it in season 1. We're keeping it. And well, yeah, here's the thing that happens. The really cliched thing. When things are going... May I see it? Episodes of Supergirl are either really good or really terrible, and this one is one of the rare ones that falls like in the middle, but that's because of moments like this. Every time something goes too smoothly, they have to throw in a cringe moment like this. For instance, you have two lesbian characters in the same room. And this is typical TV and movie logic that I just am like, even if they don't know each other, and really wouldn't, of course they end up in bed together. It's like, that never happens with two straight characters. Just because they're in the same room doesn't mean they're gonna end up in bed. But it's like, the moment you realize that that Kara's sister is coming with her, you know, oh, she's gonna end up sleeping with Sarah. Oh, she's gonna want to pretend it didn't happen. Oh, there's gonna be an emotional complication. Oh, we know exactly where this story is headed. Oh, we've seen this a billion times before with both straight and gay couples. Oh, who cares? That's why I'm not gonna mention the subplot again. Unless it somehow figures into resolution, which I don't think it's going to. It's just too cliched and too by the numbers. So, who cares? So, anyway, the rehearsal dinner goes off without a hitch, and one of the things that people will probably complain about is that this takes a long time to get going. However, I will point out that when this will be watched, if you watch this all at once as a movie, as I do with the last year's big crossover event, it's going to come in at around 2 hours and 48 minutes. So it's spending the first 30 minutes or so of its runtime on character moments doesn't bother me. To me, I like that kind of pacing. I like the slow build-up. I like the fact that we're getting to know the characters, we're getting to see how they interact, and that they're trying to make this a jumping-on point for new viewers. They do little continuity. What continuity is there is just sitting there, is just average, is just throwaway line here or there that you can easily work out what's going on, so you don't need much. No mentions of major plot elements from any show, except I don't know if this whole breakup storyline, Supergirl, can be so pathetic at times. This whole breakup storyline that she and her sister mentioned, it may be the major plot element of the show this year. I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah. And the wedding starts going off, and of course Mick gets some of the best lines, like for instance meeting Caitlin at the rehearsal dinner, and you go, wait, didn't I try to kidnap you once? And he says it so casually. It's like it's always perfect delivery with Mick. It always is, and it's always great. It's like, it's so casual. Like, he's like, wait, didn't you? It's like running into somebody and going, oh, didn't you work at the post office in that town I used to live in? Mm-hmm. It's like that sort of thing. Like, oh yeah, didn't I try to kidnap you once? And then at the wedding, he's asked the bride or groom's side, and And his reaction is, well, I did try to kill the groom a couple of times, so I guess you should put me on the bride's side. It's like perfect. It's like he just casually drops that. And, well, and things seem to be going pretty well, but as I mentioned, if you have a wedding in a superhero comic, you're just asking for a supervillain to mess it up. And that is what happens here, of course. Because they're no sooner getting started with the ceremony than a heat ray comes and vaporizes, I don't know, the minister. Oh, one thing I missed at the rehearsal dinner, Oliver proposed, and for some stupid personal reason, Felicity turned him down, and she thinks they could go back to the thing where they were, whereas when a guy like Oliver proposes, it's sort of an all or nothing thing, and he's sort of saying where he wants things to go, and you're saying that you... And when she says that she never wants to get married, you're sort of saying that you have completely different objectives in life, so you're not going to work out together, so don't string them along like this. Of course, we all know things are going to work out by the end, so yeah. And it doesn't really feel much in character for Felicity. I'm not sure what she's going through. There isn't anything going on that hasn't gone on before. She doesn't mention the him possibly going to prison thing, so I don't think that's it. But anyway, so a heat ray vaporizes the minister, justice of the peace. I'm not sure who it is. And Nazi girl and Green Nazi, Nazi Prometheus are attacking with a bunch of Nazis with guns from the 1940s. Huge action scene. Wally gets involved. Thank you, letting Wally get involved this once. Yeah, there are going to be heroes missing from this due to budgetary reasons, and my big problem with this whole 4-part is that they don't put in an excuse for him not being there in the story. Superman is one that you can work out for your own. We meet Supergirl while she's fighting a Dominator, so if there are aliens running around to the extent that there are Dominators there, then yeah, I can see what Superman needs to stay on his Earth to keep that sort of problem in check. Okay, by that. But the rest of it, yeah, there are notable heroes missing from this because you can only afford so many guest stars on each show. So, but there's a good smattering of representation to make for good fight scenes. The fight scenes are fun and dynamic in this. The fight scene is fun and dynamic. Right now the Nazi guys are wearing masks, but the Nazi doppelgangers, you can tell, you know exactly who they are. So anyway, fight scene goes on. There are all sorts of awesome moments, like Oliver shooting an arrow out of the air from Green Nazi, and before Cisco gets knocked out really hard, so hard it puts him in a coma, Cisco opening a breach and Oliver just jumping through it, and you can tell. And I just love how these guys work like a well-oiled machine at this point, where they're just like, Cisco, I need a breach up there, and it's like, even though they're not on the same team, they still know each other's strengths and weaknesses at this point, and they're working like a well-oiled machine, and they cause the Nazis to have to retreat, including Eobard, and they capture Prometheus Nazi, and then they get back and they don't know what's going on. Wells fills them in that there's a dimension called Dimension X where nobody from any other dimensions goes there. Why? Because Hitler won World War II with super weapons, and all the superheroes are loyal to him. So yeah. basically what you could infer from the 30-second ad is exactly what's happening. The episode closes with us seeing the villains and revealing that Eobard Fawn putting back on the face of Harrison Wells is working with them. And oddly enough, he seems to be a true believer in the Nazi ideal, which I know that he worked with the Nazis in last season on Legends of Tomorrow, but I always thought he was more using them for his own ends, not buying into them. But anyway, or maybe he's just spinning things because, well, that's the type of guy he is to use them. I don't know. But we do find out that something romantically is going on between Green Nazi and Nazi Girl. And we find out there's something on Earth 1 that they need. And then the reveal is given that and our cliffhanger. This episode is better than your usual episode of Supergirl. There's a reason why I don't review your usual episode of Supergirl, because I can't make it through, and it would just be me complaining, so yeah, I'm not that much of a masochist. And here's the thing, every time they do a crossover with Supergirl, it's better than average, and they let Melissa Bonset really come out and be the Supergirl that she should be all the time. So, what I want to ask the writers of Supergirl is this. Why can't you just play a pretend game? Play a pretend game. Every week when you're writing Supergirl, just pretend you're writing a crossover episode where she's interacting with the Flash. And ask yourself, what would she act like, and what would we do? Would we be preaching about stuff that everybody agrees on? Would we be doing all this like our audience is ignorant people? Would we be doing this in a crossover episode? And if the answer is no, then just don't do it. Do something else. I will say this, there is one cringe moment, is when they have Supergirl sing at the funeral, and it's just a little bit too much mush. Too much mush, and it feels like they're just killing time until they can get to the fight. But I will give it this, at least Melissa Bonset can sing. Unlike Jesse L. Martin, who can't sing. But they keep having sing because the producers are high on something and think that he can. I don't think he even knows what a musical key is, let alone how to hit one and stay on it. Anyway, and by the way, I like the rest of his performance. I love the rest of his performance as Joe. He's part of the heart of this show and what made me latch onto it in the pilot episode. So, not everybody can sing. For instance, I think Pierce Brosnan was a really good Bond, and he was amazing in the series Remington Steele, but he can't sing. So don't put him in a musical, please. But anyway, so yeah. But anyway, so this episode was better than average for Supergirl, and it was a pretty good kickoff. It was a slow start, but that's what you want in a 2-hour, 48-minute adventure story. To me, it reminds me of the segment where we get to know everyone and we get to see them all interacting, and we're having fun riding along with them at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. We're having fun just hanging out with the hobbits in Hobbiton at the beginning of that movie. The same thing is true here. We're just having fun hanging out with the heroes for most of this episode, and then there's a great action scene at the end, so I can't really ask for more, especially from a series that is usually so subpar. So I'm giving this episode a 7 out of 10. And we'll move on to the next review in Arrow.